about that was then my doctor said, oh, wait, hang on, never mind, we're live. Folks, we are live, I guess, and fortunately I caught that because I was just about to share a very embarrassing story with the whole world. But I'm your host, Dash V, and with me today I've got Jeremy.
Or the Red Bearded Gamer. And today we have a very special guest. We have Troy from Trojan King of 94 of Wisconsin. Introduce yourself, Troy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on. My name is Troy Frisk. I go by the gamer tag Trojan, and I run a NHL 94 tournament in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and that's the game we'll be talking about today.
Excellent. Also, just in case, I'm going to have to remind people throughout the show that, RoboCop did not join the Packers. Right? So anybody that's tuning in late, that is not RoboCop playing for the Packers.
Drop it.
That's just Troy, all right? I'll mess you up.
If you want to tweet the questions, concerns, ask Troy questions, remember, hashtag RRPFTW. Or if you just want to say Go Pack Go, that's fine too.
Yes, that's right. You can catch it down in the bottom in the tagline right there. You should see it. You can tweet us live during the show, hashtag RRPFTW. We'll be monitoring that on our Twitter feed. And if you've got questions, comments, blackmail material, just feel free to share that with us on the Twitters, and we'll share it on the show.
Dash's doctor.
I know. I need a stalker. I don't have a stalker. We need a stalker. But I think that's one of those be careful what you wish for things, though, Jeremy.
I can get you a stalker if you want.
So, but speaking of what you wish for, right, Troy, just start us off, I guess, with a little bit about what was the first time you played NHL 94 for the Genesis? Because you run tournaments for NHL 94, right?
That is correct. So my experience with NHL 94 actually predates my ownership of the Genesis console. I actually grew up with the Super Nintendo. The game NHL 94 actually was released on multiple platforms, and my first exposure on it was actually called NHL Hockey. It was released the same year as the other platforms, and it was for DOS. So it was on my dad's computer.
Oh, wow.
For any of you old school PC gamers, if you remember the Gravis gamepad, that's how I got down with the little screw-on joystick if you wanted, or you could.
I have one of those. In Super Mario Bros.
Or Button Magic.
Yeah.
But it was a great game, and years later I got exposed to the NHL series on the Genesis, not having owned one, and then I played it once I figured out that the Genesis was the more popular and considered to be the better version of everything that was out there. Played it more in an emulator than anything. But when you start getting into running retro tournaments, you realize that you don't want to bring 10 computers to a location with different monitors and different reaction speeds, and you have the input lag. So we started getting the real thing. So we've got Genesis hardware. We've got the real 3 and 6 button controllers. This isn't in those generic knockoffs. This is the real thing.
Yeah.
And we play on the real cartridges. So we do it with the CRT televisions, mostly composite hookups, just the way that you would have played as a kid.
Now, tell me about the sound systems. Do they go to 11?
The sound systems? I'm sorry.
Are you
talking about on the DOS side?
That was my attempt at a bad joke. Do your sound systems go to 11? You're using the CRTs and the authentic Genesis and controllers and everything. Most speakers go to 10, but I'm pretty sure yours go to 11.
Oh, okay. It sounds good. There it went. It's gone.
That is all right. So how old did you say you were when you were first playing on PC DOS, right?
I would have been, it came out in October 1993, so I think that would have been 14 years old when that came out.
Okay, wow. Now, was it love at first play, or did it take a while to grow on you?
Well, the love at first play, getting to play was the challenge, because you're dealing with things like, and this is kind of geeking out here, but if you remember DOS gaming, trying to configure the HiMem.sys files in the upper memory block and having enough conventional memory to get the game to load up. But once we got there, some things that in that game, that are not in the other versions. When the game starts, they actually play the tail end of "O Canada" or the Star Spangled Banner, depending on who the home team is. You've got actually digitized voiceovers versus, and they do have that in the Sega CD version. But when someone scores, they'll say number so and so, but there's a person saying it. They don't say the individual's name. And it's just if you go back in time, you're playing on a CRT television with most people, the best they had was RF. Maybe you had composite. In the States, you didn't have the illustrious RGB. Versus playing on a computer where you have a high quality VGA hookup, so the sprites are much brighter. The gameplay is definitely slower, even if the PC is up to snuff. And that's what when you get your hands on NHL 94 on the Genesis, you realize quickly that game was made more in the arcade style. The best thing I would say is like a Tecmo Super Bowl or a or Tecmo Bowl if you prefer that one, and then like NBA Jam. There's a combination of balance of fun and realism. NBA Jam is more that's what it's more arcade than anything with NBA players, but it's about the bang bang plays, how quick and responsive everything is, the one timer, the passing, the checks. It's all it's easy to pick up, hard to master would be the kind of the gospel as that's concerned.
So once you could play the game without having to run MemMaker, then you were in love.
Yes, I definitely loved it. It has the same blue ice as all the other games, the great organ riffs, and if anyone wants a more detailed breakdown of what each version is, I would encourage them. If I can name drop, Chris from CG Quarterly has an incredible video out there that he did on the history of the game and the series leading up to it. So he did a great job laying that out. So if you're subscribed to him or not, I would certainly recommend checking out that particular documentary on that game. But as far as the Genesis goes, it's definitely the superior version. They were actually developed by different companies. So Canada has a lot of Super Nintendo placement. In the States, it seemed like Genesis was a little more popular. In the Super Nintendo version, it was a completely different developer, and it shows. It's not a bad game, but it's nowhere near as good. Those that grew up on it swear by it, but those that have had exposure to both tended to prefer the Genesis version of that particular game.
Yeah, I think in terms of arcade games and sports games, the Genesis is known as being superior in those two categories.
Yep, generally speaking, you're absolutely right, especially sports games. The Maddens, the NHL, the FIFA, they seem to play a little better right out of the gate.
Yeah. So Jeremy, you had some more questions regarding the tournaments.
Yes. What made you interested in starting to organize these tournaments for NHL 94?
So going back, I've been running gaming events since 2002 under the organization. It's called GB LAN, and that's a PC-centric LAN parties, for lack of better terms. And before broadband, what it was today, we did a lot more, but we still do LAN parties today. But at our largest point about 10 years ago, we actually had a Counter-Strike tournament in the midst of it was a Counter-Strike Source tournament, I'm sorry. And we had about 8 teams present, and we had about 120 total participants in the event. And that was, a cash payout event. So teams paid it extra to be a part of that particular facet of that event. With NHL specifically, going before that, we had some time in the retro. We got interested in the Tecmo Super Bowl and some other retro games, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. Started running events at different venues, and we had some people tell us, hey, NHL 94 is a great game. We'd love to see a tournament of that. And so I went out and I looked at on Google. That's kind of where you start with a lot of things. And the King of 94 tournament is the first thing that shows up. And they're a group of guys based in Canada that run a tournament that has about 120 participants. and it's just massive. And they run it on actually both the Super Nintendo and the Genesis systems. And they have a great following. So I reached out to the organizers. I'm like, hey, how should I go about doing this? And they really laid it out for me. And I expressed that, I wouldn't fiscally, want to get into both ends. I'd kind of want to pick the Genesis because that was the version that I preferred between those two options. So I wasn't going to go try to find 10 DOS computers and really, 10
maker and defrag.
10 Gravis gamepads, actually
Yeah.
20 Gravis gamepads. But in all seriousness, they were a huge help. They've given us a lot of exposure on the NHL94.com, which again, just another great resource if you want to get into the nuts and bolts of the NHL 94 community, as well as other versions of that game. Very similar to the Tecmo Super Bowl community, they have online leagues, even hacked ROMs. So if you want to play the old game with updated rosters, so if you want to play with the new teams, exactly. So you Sidney Crosby, you have the city changes where the teams, the Hartford Whalers, the Edmonton Oilers, that kind of thing. Those that they've changed. You can play with the Hurricanes and that sort of thing. They have that hack made. It takes a lot of energy from the community, but people are proud to do it. If you have something like an EverDrive, you can play it on the real console. Otherwise, an emulator will fire that right up.
So tell us a little bit more about your history with NHL 94. Is there anything in your experience with playing it or hosting tournaments or even just like childhood gaming with friends, any particular memories that stand out as odd, awkward, or maybe humorous?
So actually, there was an experience this past weekend with a buddy of mine. He's probably going to catch I think his head's on the pillow now, but he'll be catching the re-record here. And I just want to quickly clarify, this is as far as Kingdom 94 Wisconsin, this is our first tournament on this particular game. We've played it casually on streams. This is our first entry into that particular game. We've had some time on Tecmo and Street Fighter, but as far as an actual all-out, cash payout tournament, this is our first attempt at that. But going back into my friend who goes by Moman, he played it back when he was a kid, hadn't played it in a while, and I got up pretty early on him. We did initially a fairly balanced matchup, and then we did another game, and I tried to make it a little more lopsided in his favor to kind of balance it out. And at some point, he gave me the old elbow. We're sitting next to each other, knocks the controller out of my hand. My guy's got the puck, and knocks it in my own goal. And we both just started belly laughing after that. But as far as my buddies, I got a couple that are quite a bit better than I am. I got a couple that they're more Tecmo guys, but they like to play it. We haven't had any significant competition as far as like doing a tournament until we decided to do this, which is actually bringing some people from out of the area to try to compete for that cash prize.
When is the tournament? Just so you plug it in.
Oh, yep. So it's September 24th. So it's just a few weeks out here, and it's going to be at the Town Line Pub and Grill in Swamico, Wisconsin. And that's just off the Lineville exit. It's about 2 miles north of Green Bay. And we actually have they have a mezzanine. So at the top area, we have that whole area to ourselves. Food, beverage, as much as you need. All ages are welcome as long as they're accompanied by an adult. If you're not an adult, actually, my son will be competing, and he's mentally able to do that. He's going to be almost 9 by the time that comes on. But it's generally geared towards people 25 to 45 that probably had their hands on a Genesis or Super Nintendo in their lifetime.
Interesting. So, and now there's money to attend, but there's cash payouts, right?
Correct. So the cash payouts is going to be a direct proportion to the amount of entry that comes in. We are not holding on to any of the money whatsoever. 100% of the money that's coming in is actually going out. We had some people donate. We don't have to pay for the trophy now. We have someone donating. Actually, it's going to be a fabricated trophy. One of my groomsmen actually stood my wedding. He works at a fab shop, so he's going to be making Lord Manly's cup. So that's the trophy.
Awesome.
That's the trophy that we're giving away. And the top
Would you like to give him a
three.
shout out?
What's that?
You want to give him a shout out real quick?
He goes by Charlie Bravo. We'll just leave it at that. But he will he'll be there to present the trophy. Top three finishers will win prize money. In addition to that, and we're still there's actually a bounty on the guy we call Angry Jay. He's coming all the way from California. He's been a high-level competitor in the Canadian tournaments, and so he's matching. We're putting $5, and he's putting $5 against anyone that can beat him in group play, and then $10 and $10 to anyone that can knock him out of the tournament. So, and then we're still working on a way to give away this bad boy, which is, if you can't see, it's NHL 94 for the Sega CD. Actually, one of the more common games for the Sega CD, but you don't see them, loose too often. It's because not many people actually have Sega CDs that function anymore. It's one of those things that those optical drives break down. But but as far as a collector's item, it's a nice, it's a nice giveaway. So we're gonna find a way to make sure everyone's got a shot at winning that.
So, interesting aside, since you brought it up, folks, if you've got Sega CD games and a Sega CD that no working no more, if you have an Xbox, the original Xbox, right, and you have it soft modded, you can play your original legit Sega CD games in your Xbox original through software emulation. Just so you know.
That is magical. We'll have to connect offline on that.
Very magical. It is very magical.
So, did that answer your question then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. If someone want to attend your tournament, how would they go about that? A website, contact you?
Okay. I'm just going to pull. Apologize. I got.
He's going to shout out the information here live, folks, but we'll go ahead and after the show post the details for sign up and all that other stuff down in the dooley-doo in the description.
Apologize, my cord got caught on the chair here. So the website is facebook.com/GBNHL94. That stands for Green Bay NHL 94. So facebook.com/GBNHL94. That's our organizational page, and our tournament is pinned in there. From there, there's actually a sign-up button that'll take you to the NHL 94 forums that have all of the rules for the who's, the what's, the whys, what you can do, what you can't do, and how the tournament will be formatted. To break it down, this is what's great, because a lot of times you have folks that are concerned, well, I'm going to pay $25 or $30, depending if, at this point it's $30 at the door. If you walk in and you're like, well, I don't want to, just hand my money over to someone. A lot of tournaments have maybe, single elimination, double elimination. Maybe you get a couple, maybe 4 games at most. Everyone's guaranteed at least 8 games in our tournament.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And the thing with NHL 94 is that it only takes 15 minutes to play a game if you're doing it right. So we do a 10-minute period, which is accelerated time. It's not actual time. We turn off the penalties penalties are on minus the offsides, which sometimes the computer screws that up at no fault of your own. So we make sure that that's off. With manual goalie, you can still have it be automatic, but you have the ability to select them and make maneuvers. The line changing is off. Your roster is set once the game starts. You can make a change during the intermission, or in the event of an injury. There is the random occurrence where someone has a strong check that might knock that player out for that period or the game. But those are only really the times you're allowed to make those changes. And then you're allowed to pull your goalie if you want. You rarely see it because it's not particularly effective in this game, but the NHL 94 forum. Again, that links right to there, and it's also there's extensive discussion in that forum group about additional questions that you may have. We can respond to there. We also have you can message us directly there or via the King of 94 Facebook page, and we'll respond there. We'll also respond the Twitter handle at Trojan Voice. That's my Twitter handle. I can respond on there.
Okay.
So there's a number of ways. If you want to prepay Trojan1979 at Gmail, you can send it there, or you can pay us cash at the door.
All right. So while you were announcing all that stuff, we may or may not have gotten a Twitter post from at the real Donald Trump, who may or may not have said, "Let's make the Retro Reload podcast great again, folks." Live tweet during the show, hashtag RRPFTW, hashtag Trump can't swim. What's that about?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that. Can he really not swim? I don't know. Patton Oswalt somehow all day today has been saying Trump can't swim. I don't know if it's true or not. It's totally unrelated. Speaking of totally unrelated, thank you for the segue, Dashby. As I understand it, you're into more retro gaming than just NHL hockey, right?
This is correct.
So what other retro games are you into, my friend?
So in the same vein of sports, Tecmo Super Bowl and Tecmo Bowl are fans. I'm a fan of those games. I'm directly involved currently with the Tecmo Milwaukee tournament. They had their first tournament back in April. I helped run the live stream with that, and I supplied most of the consoles, and then there were some local guys that also supplied some consoles. And we had about 40 people participate, and it went very well. I'll be involved with them again in November, and as that continues to grow, so we're happy to be a part of that. So if that's actually one thing that I would definitely recommend, if you guys are into Tecmo Super Bowl at all, you want to make a pilgrimage to the greater Green Bay area. Milwaukee's only a couple hours outside of Green Bay, and where the location is, it's actually not quite 2 hours if you drive fast enough. But I definitely love that game. That was a game that I played within the first year of it being released, and that was one of those games you went to your buddy's house and you slept over for the weekend, and you got blisters on your thumbs. So that was a lot of fun.
Now, I understand you're also a fan of Mortal Kombat. Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct. Mortal Kombat!
Mortal Kombat!
Oh, yeah. That's my live stream has some content there. It's getting harder and harder to find online players, but so we're talking the originals. There's 1, 2, and UMK3. I stay clear of UMK3. I have issues that I won't dive in too much there, but Mortal Kombat 1, while not a balanced game, was kind of the original shock factor game. Where people were running, the government is yelling at parents to not have let their kids play it, and I played it, and I got really good at it over the years. And then Mortal Kombat 2 is another game that is definitely a better game than MK1. Maybe not balanced, the highest levels and lowest levels, but it's still a game that have a lot of skill in. But MK1, it was definitely my gaming career, the highest I was able to get as far as any sort of ranking on Xbox Live. At one point, I got to 16 on the leaderboards.
Wow.
And it probably would have been higher if it wasn't for all the disconnects. Does that mean I'm the 16th best player in the world? No, not at all. Probably not the 16th best player in the United States. But I would say, top 100 wouldn't be out of line. If anyone, as far as anyone is actively playing, because there's also the PlayStation platform, there's the Steam platform, if you can count that one, and then there were other versions that were on other platforms. So, but that being said, there's a local game store who actually is one of our sponsors for the NHL event, Game Trade in De Pere. They just moved locations like literally next door. But they had a bunch of signatures on the wall from the customers, and they used to do these late night on Friday. People would come in and they'd play fighting games. Well, we busted out the arcade collection on PS3, plugged my PS3 controller in, and I put I don't know, it was like 10 or 20 bucks down. And I just said, if anyone can beat me once, it's yours. There's no risk. And we got to 51-0, and then they had to turn the lights off. So I signed 51-0 on that wall. And that was just, there was just no one around that could challenge me. Again, this is, greater Green Bay area here, a group of 10, 12 guys that all tried, and that's okay. That wasn't much.
Anyone get close to beating you?
One guy guessed enough times to win one round. I lost one round that entire time, but I didn't lose the match.
So you only lost one round total.
Correct.
Damn. That's like
I remember reading somewhere, and I don't remember where, but I remember reading somewhere that Megan Fox loves Mortal Kombat. So I just thought I'd throw that out there for anybody.
If she wants to play, I'll play Megan Fox. I'm sure that I'm really worth her time.
We'll see if we can make that happen. She hasn't used Twitter in the last 3 years. I checked, but
okay.
Yeah. So I was hoping I could be like Oprah and be like, well, I can make that happen.
You get a Mortal Kombat. You get a Mortal Kombat. Everyone gets Mortal Kombat.
Exactly. I've gotten us off topic. Jeremy, bring us back on topic, my friend.
Tell us about the greatest match you ever played in NHL 94.
The greatest match that I ever played in NHL 94. I don't think I could put my finger on that one specifically. I think I'm just more of I just have a more emotional nostalgia with the game than anything. Again, not having played anything super competitively. If you asked me that same question with Tecmo, I could run off 2 or 3 matches that were very memorable.
Let's hear it.
Okay. So the organizer, John Stocks of Tecmo Milwaukee, he's a good player, and I would say he's better than I am. 9 out of 10 times. I might, out of a 10 match, I might win 3, based on what I've seen. And I got pretty deep in the last tournament, and I pick a matchup, and he's literally wearing a Tampa Bay Buccaneers Hardy Nickerson jersey. I pick a matchup of Tampa Bay versus Dallas, and so he's I got to go with Emmitt Smith. There's a particular pass play that he kept calling that I picked, and normally, if you know how Tecmo Bowl or Tecmo Super Bowl goes, if you pick the other player's play, it usually doesn't go well for that guy. Well, he kept picking it, and so it should go bad for me, and I kept completing passes to Mark Carrier over and over and over through the jump ball mechanism. And at one point,
Jackass, I believe, is Brad.
Yeah, the JJs. There you go. So you're connected to the scene.
Yeah, see, I know one showing already. I know what I'm talking about.
Dash V is legit. And so we do this, and at one point, he takes the controller. He doesn't throw it, but he just kind of throws it aside. He just kind of chucks it aside, not slamming it, and just Vinny stinking Testaverde. That wasn't the word he used, but and on top of that, I got one of those fumble scoop scores when I picked his play, where all of a sudden the lineman is running like he's Bo Jackson. That game had a lot of emotion. It was close most of the game, and I played better. And I had some Tecmo luck on the side there, but I played better than I expected to. The other game that I would say would be I played against Matt Miller, who is significantly better than I am, and I was within a touchdown. Actually, I opened the game with the lead with something like a 95-yard touchdown run with Christian Okoye. He got popcorn in the back, couldn't catch up, and I went to the house. I played out of my mind, still didn't win, but it put me I felt okay. At least I can, I don't have to feel afraid of these guys when I play them anymore. I know they're vulnerable. So those are 2 games that stick, and those both were the last Milwaukee tournament.
Awesome. Speaking of vulnerable, right? How bad do you think you could school Jeremy in a game of NHL 94?
So I'm pretty mediocre as that game goes. I guess it depends on how often Jeremy's played the game. If we were to pick lower end teams,
no, I want you to go all out on me if we play. That's the thing.
Yeah.
No, because how the team selection process works is someone will flip a coin.
Yeah.
Or the coin is flipped. The winner of that coin flip calls the matchup. So this prohibits you from like getting someone's got the best team and the worst team. You want to call two relatively equal teams. So let's say I called Ottawa and Florida. So the Senators and the Panthers, and no matter which one of these you picked, I'd probably take you down, by at least 5 or 6 goals, maybe more. Depends on how quickly you picked up on the game, because the goalies on their own are just not particularly good. And if you don't check me and I can move around as I want, that's the thing that new players have trouble grasping, is how to really control and get in the way, and how to switch and pass and things like that. So there's a little bit of an adjustment once you kind of, because you're not just like, you can't just stop, you're on ice, so you have momentum, that inertia that keeps moving you around. So I would guess conservatively 5 or 6 goals. I went up, another buddy of mine 8-1 the other day, same matchup to start, and I think it went up like 10-3 at the end. The game goes by quicker than you think, so you can't put up like 50 goals on someone and just, I can't say it's never been done, but there just isn't enough time in the game.
So now this is a question. I believe this gets a bit into the lore of hockey.
Lore.
The lore of hockey, or at least the lore of NHL hockey. Were you the one that had told me, maybe in the pre-show or something, but the game was actually made by somebody who knew nothing about hockey before making the game? Is that true?
That's correct. So the and I'm going to again kind of tip it back to Chris from Classic Gaming Quarterly. He had worked on, I think, possibly FIFA. The name of the individual is not in front of me, I'm sorry, but he actually had to learn about how hockey worked and then made the game around the information that he studied. And it turned out that the guy that knew nothing about hockey made probably the best hockey game of all time.
That's actually pretty
I think that's sweet irony.
That is pretty good. Is there anything he got dead wrong?
Dead wrong? Well, there are some bugs in the game, and so if you're controlling a player, for instance, that and I don't think this is his fault. This is just whoever coded it. I don't know where he stopped and that started. If you're controlling a player that, like, let's say Wayne Gretzky, who may not necessarily have high hitting power, the stats are like reversed as the hitting power. So the defensemen, if you're controlling them, not if the computer's controlling, but if you are controlling them, those stats are reversed. So the real fast guys do heavy hitting. So if you're controlling a slower guy and you want to have his stats take effect, there's a technique called a B check where you hit the button to switch off of that player just as his momentum is going.
Oh.
Otherwise, it doesn't normally work properly. If you're controlling a guy, you're like, why am I always getting creamed? It's just a bug. There's another bug in the game, and there's a number of them that it just and just to clarify, in our tournament, anything goes. For the most part, if it's in the game, it's in the game, to quote EA Sports. So like on a penalty shot, it's possible once the goalie blocks the shot, normally in real hockey, it's over. Well, in NHL 94, sometimes the play doesn't stop. There's a continuation. And so the goalie gets frozen, but you can still control the shooter, and you actually can do a follow-up shot, and it goes in. Doesn't always happen, but it's sometimes it does, and it's allowed in the tournament. It's just one of those broken game bugs.
Imagine if it's like all tied up, and then somebody wins based on that.
Last second when that happens, dang, I'll be pissed.
I've had it happen to me a couple times. It's one of those things where, again, it's in the game. Another thing you can do is you can actually, instead of shoot the puck at the goalie, you can pass it in his direction. And if you have the right angle approach, sometimes they won't do anything about it because it's not a shot. So it treats it like a pass, and so it just goes right in. You got to be really good to do it, or at least rehearsed. I haven't been able to do it with any consistency. So again, we there are some people that, like, if they're really good at exploiting these things, those people are probably going to be near the end of the bracket, if not at the top of the bracket, fighting it out for that prize money.
Wow. Jeremy, I'll throw it back to you. I asked 2 questions in a row, so I'll give you the next one.
Sacrilege.
Besides NHL 94, name some other sports games you enjoy. Besides Tecmo Bowl, also.
I enjoyed casually the NBA Jam series. I say super casually. NFL Blitz is also fun. I got the 2010 version. I want to say maybe it was 2011, where they released it on the 360 and PS3. So they had the updated rosters. I enjoyed that. I have last year's Madden on the PS4. I've got FIFA and the NHL 16. Really not good at any of them at all. They're more simulations now than anything, and I give them props for what they are.
Have you played any of the Wii versions of Madden?
I have not. That was one console that I never officially owned. I went from Xbox to the 360 and before the Xbox, I had the Dreamcast. So, so I had the NFL 2K series was something I really enjoyed on that system. Chuck it to Randy Moss every play. That was the game.
Either of these did you play?
So I have some time on there, not extensive. I played the hockey version, not the football.
Yeah, Mutant League Hockey. It's going for folks. If you could find a Mutant League Hockey complete in box for under $100, grab it. So it's not only is it a great game, it's based on the NHL hockey engine actually, but it's also crazy hard to find nowadays.
And the football one's based off the Madden, as I understand.
Yeah, I think it's based off the Madden 95 engine.
That was when the offense, they took away the window passing. It was just open field, and then the defense. The game just got a lot faster, 95 and on.
Very nice, very nice. So I'm surprised though you didn't get those were exclusive to the Sega Genesis as well.
Well, and kind of going back to originally that I had a Super Nintendo growing up, so that the Sega Genesis is something that I played when I went over to a friend's house.
I missed that bit.
But the system that I had, as far as the home console, was NES, SNES, and then went into the PlayStation after that. So,
so which Tecmo then Which Tecmo were you playing then when you played Tecmo Bowl? Were you playing that on Super NES or were you playing that on NES?
The only Tecmo Super Bowl that I played when I had a SNES was the third version, the final version that had the multiple playbook pages.
Gotcha.
They had the automated, jumping from the running backs and the spin moves and that sort of thing that kind of just automatically happened. The creative player mode. But really, I always went back to the original on the regular Nintendo.
Nice, very nice. So, how many tournaments so far? Is this the first tournament that you've organized that's coming up, or have you organized other tournaments before?
Well, I've organized other tournaments. This is the first NHL 94 tournament. So, being on staff with Tecmo Milwaukee, I've had one this year that I've done with them. I did the sole organizing of a tournament a few weeks prior, and we did that more of a casual level here in Green Bay. It let me put all my equipment through its paces to make sure it was all fit for the Tecmo Milwaukee. The biggest difference between when I run a Tecmo Super Bowl tournament and then maybe like the Tundra Bowl and Tecmo Milwaukee and Madison, the heavy hitter, we don't have cash payouts. So the venue usually gives out a gift card to pay for the tab. The prices are reflective of that. We're not giving away T-shirts and stuff. It's basically people putting $5-10 in to play, and then we take that and those finances and try to put it back into keeping the systems up and buying more controllers, copies of the game, that sort of thing.
Have you done any Mortal Kombat tournaments?
I haven't. There just is not any interest. I've put it out there. I know really one or two people in our area that would even play casually if I called them.
Wow.
So it's at least in the old school. I really wanted to get down to the Retro World Series, and it just wasn't in the cards for me this year. In Houston, they had an NHL 94 tournament. They had a Tecmo Bowl tournament. They had an RBI baseball, which I forgot to mention was another game I played. And then they had Mortal Kombat 2 and Street Fighter 2, the championship on the Sega Genesis. So they had games that I would have been very competitive in the bracket, and would have loved to have been a part of all that. But unfortunately, at least in this area, it doesn't seem to be as popular of a game otherwise. Because as far as I'd love to be able to go there and maybe win some prize money in my own tournament. There just aren't enough players. There's a decent Street Fighter following for the newer versions, Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5. You can get 8 to 16 guys together if you give them about a month notice. You can usually make that happen. Outside of that, those guys are going. They're Chicago, Madison. They have larger communities for that game that are already established. So you try not to fight against that too much when I run stuff. I try to keep it a little more casual. As NHL goes, there aren't many tournaments, especially in the Midwest. Really, the Canadian tournament is the closest thing to us for that particular game. So it seemed appropriate to make it happen. And since it gets pretty cold in the frozen tundra here, it seemed like a good with the focus groups I like to call, just hey, at the Tecmo tournament, what other games you like to play? NHL 94 kept coming up over and over and over, and so we're running it.
So nice. We have a question for you from Twitter. One Eye McGee wants to know, how hard is it to pick up NHL 94 when you're more used to today's version of games?
Oh, that's a good question.
The control scheme is different. On the Sega Genesis, you don't have any, there's just a directional pad. There's no analog sticks. So literally you've got the B button is your pass, C button shoots, and the A button flips it into the zone. You've got 3 buttons that do everything. So you're not controlling the speed of your shots through an analog stick, with the swing back. So it's more of an arcade feel. You're looking for openings. The most powerful shot in NHL 94 is the one-timer. For those that don't know what that is, you pass to one player. As soon as he receives the puck, you hit the shoot button, and he makes a slap shot towards the net. The idea is to try to get it there before the goalie gets over to defend. So you're trying to cross it in front of him. So the defenders are trying to gunk up the middle to prevent that pass from happening. But that's easily the most effective shot. I would say it's not difficult because it's far less complex. That being said, the timings are different. And again, it's simpler, but not you're not going to master it right away. But if you've been able to have any success with the real thing, I think you'd be able to pick it up pretty quickly.
Jeremy.
Yes.
We need to give you some no-dos, my friend.
Sorry about that.
No, that's the problem with hosting the show late at night, right?
Yeah, and I've been sick the last couple of days, so
I know. We appreciate you powering through it for the good of the team, right? He's showing his teamwork there. So Tyler could not be here tonight, folks. We apologize for that. He had some stuff going on. Lizzie also sends her warm wishes, but she was also not able to be in attendance. So we are small but mighty tonight on Retro Reload.
We'll claim Matthews for you.
There we go. So that was a pretty good question regarding the new school versus old school games. My question is very similar in that, are there any games of current generation that you're either looking forward to or that that you prefer to the old school? Do any of the modern day sports games in any sports genre kind of hold up, or what is it about the old school? Is it the arcade feel? Is it the simpler controls? Is it the games not getting patched every other day?
There's a little bit of all of that. I think nostalgia is a huge piece of it. People our age played a certain game, and when those games are $40-$50 coming out in the store, you didn't always get it the same, the next game every year. So there's usually one or two, like the example, the one I had on DOS was the only hockey game I ever owned until I got a PlayStation. So you learn to love a game. Tecmo Super Bowl is another example of that. Once I got that game, I didn't have a football game until I had a Super Nintendo. Then I eventually got Madden, and because it was in the games, and we did that. I don't know if there's this, as far as just straight on sports simulations, I think it's so far away from what it was. They were always held back by technological limitations. But going back, yes, there's something in the gameplay mechanics that's just simpler, easier to pick up. For me to pick up and play NHL, and I don't know if I have 100 hours in that game of my lifetime. There's some people that do that, this month. As far as those, the dedicated players. Ultimately, like if I wanted to be good at NHL 17 or whatever the next version coming is here, I would need to play it
every day.
Probably a couple hours every day. Just to be bad. There's just so much more going on to execute from the control scheme just to do basic things. And some people, if they grow up on that, that's what they're used to. By all means, but going back, I think you hit on the head. It's just simpler. The patching actually would have solved some of those little bugs, like the extra shot on a penalty shot. So I'm not upset by patching. Does it take a little bit longer to get in a game sometimes because you maybe haven't patched in a while? Yeah, but we've got fast internet now, so it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, what would frustrate me more would be to have a game that had all the patches and all that other stuff, and then go to play it 10 years later and have to play it out of box without any of the patches.
Well, someday there's something to that.
The extra shot.
So if you boot your PS4 up 10 years from now, especially if you bought your game digitally, I mean that thing may not even launch.
Yeah.
It may not. You have to log into the console. It may not work at some point. I don't know exactly how the DRM is going to work with all of that, but DRM didn't exist back then. There is something to be said about that.
Somebody's going to hack it eventually, and you're going to play it on an emulator because you can't play it on the original console. That's probably what's going to happen.
You can play it on your
You can't
iPad
play the disc
version 12.
Yeah, you can't play the disc that you bought, so you'll download it off some Ware site or something.
Right.
But
I got big box PC games sitting back there that are absolutely useless, and because of CD keys and whatnot. That
I like though. Epic used to do it right. Epic, the guys that made Unreal Tournament and Unreal and all that other stuff. The very last patch that they would ever kick out for their games was always you don't need the disc anymore, just enjoy. So every time they finally figured, okay, we made our money off of that particular game, we're moving on to the next game, they'd release a patch that would fix some naggly remaining bugs and that kind of stuff, maybe add an extra Easter egg or two, and then they'd say, no more CD check, just have fun.
The Unreal Tournament series, specifically the 2004 version, was significant in hours consumed in our LAN party community, specifically the Death Ball mode. Zoom Instigate with about 4 or 5 players on a team, it would get pretty chaotic.
I can imagine, which brings me, I guess, this will be the final question for tonight.
Sounds good.
Unless Jeremy has a burning one that he wants to ask. But so, tournament, right? Couch multiplayer tournament style, right? Versus online multiplayer. Like, what do you think? Tournament, sitting next to the person that you're actually playing in an environment with other people doing the same thing. What do you think that has above and beyond? What makes that better? Do you think than, or is that even better than sitting on the couch playing somebody 10,000 miles away, that assuming that you don't know the person, like random multiplayer encounters versus go to a tournament, random person encounters, but in a face-to-face setting?
Sure. Well, when you're going to something like a tournament, one would think that you have at least some familiarity with what's going on, and then you're putting something up. The stakes are higher. Speaking strictly on the social aspect, I'm a big fan of what the internet has done. And unfortunately, there are trolls out there that can really, be that turd in the punch bowl. And I mean, they're out there. But that being said, okay, I got home from work. I put the kids to bed. I want to play some games, and it's not like I can just go to my neighbor's house and be like, hey, you want to play? It doesn't, get out of my yard.
Right.
So, but when you do a tournament, everyone there's kind of focused. Okay, this is what we want to do. But then you end up making friends along the way. So the social aspect, if you take just like the latency out of it, obviously there's some delay in that experience.
Right.
Take that out of the equation. Simply the ability to connect on the same level with someone about that topic, and I think that transcends gaming. We were doing this with LAN parties, but once online gaming. Well, yeah, some people still did it, but they just did it to stay connected with a lot of the same people. They're like, yeah, we still want to get together and hang out and go through some pizza and reminisce and have some laughs. If you game at home, you're always subject to those real life interruptions. But if you go and you make a point to, all right, I'm going to do this gaming now. All right, this is what I'm doing. I'm getting that gaming in, and now I'm going to go back and go about the rest of my normal day and the rest of my weekend or whatever. So I've always kind of preferred the gaming in more binge cycles, like a tournament and getting together, so that I can go and not feel distracted. Well, I really want to play this game, but I need to make dinner,
Right.
for the family or whatever. That's never in conflict at that point, because you've compartmentalized that. And I've seen, people that can't make that separation. But so I think that's the biggest difference there is just social aspect and that relationship building. That's more valuable than being able to connect to someone across the world that I don't know.
Excellent. Jeremy, did you have a follow-up final question, or are you good?
I'm good.
Alrighty. So I want to thank you for being on the show,
Thanks for having me.
sharing a bit with us about the insight. You gave a lot of really good insights into NHL 94 that I didn't know before, like different things, different quirks with the game and stuff about how to get certain shots, different things about the stats being kind of tricky, and doing the whole switch away at the last minute to make a bigger impact. Those are some pretty good tips, and I'm sure anybody that would want to go to your tournament would definitely benefit from watching this video beforehand to get some of those before, if they didn't already know them.
I did want to just mention we are going to have a few distractions there as well. So let's say you get bounced, after the initial games that you have, we're going to have some other games on hand. We're going to have some NBA Jam. We're going to have some Street Fighter. We're going to have
So
some
you're just not going to throw them out when they lose? Like, you got to go.
No, we want people to hang out, as long as they want to keep.
And they're guaranteed at least 8 games, right?
Correct. So we're anticipating, by 11 o'clock, everyone should be in their game brackets. By 3 o'clock, we should be in the actual tournament. The tournament bracket is actually single elimination until the semis and the finals. The semis and finals are best 2 out of 3 games it's like essentially a miniaturized NHL series for the semis and the finals. So
yeah, that's pretty good, because if you do the math, right, like that's like 2 hours of tournament gaming, right?
Absolutely. It's actually more than that, because if you're going 11 till 3 o'clock, it's 4 or 5 hours.
But just saying, even if you only got the 8 games in, that'd be at least 2 hours of you playing other human people and social interaction and everything.
And the food and the
games are like
refreshments are great
pop,
too. Right? It's actually we went with that venue. We've done some stuff at other places, and we wanted to make sure it was family friendly. We wanted to make sure that people didn't have to leave to get a proper meal, and because it's going to take a few hours, they can just game, and then we'll even have a few Nintendos there, so if people want to bust out Tecmo Bowl or RBI or something else, or maybe even Blades of Steel. I
was going to say, Blades of Steel going to make an appearance?
I got like 3 copies of it. I think we can make that happen. So
I might show up if there's Blades of Steel.
You know what? It wouldn't be out of line. We've got someone from California coming, Angry Jay. We've got a player from Ohio. There's a group of guys from Canada that are trying to make that work. So well, the more the merrier. We'd love to have you guys. And come see Lambo.
See, that's the problem. If I go out there, I'll just hang out Lambo the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. This might be a totally made-up tweet. You can decide for yourself. At the real Megan Fox says, I reactivated my Twitter account just so I could hashtag RRPFTW for the win. Mortal Kombat rules.
Seems legit.
Seems legit. So, folks, we'll end on that note. Am I real or am I full of it? You should go check out our Twitter feed. And if you didn't message us this time, shame on you. Tune into the show. Message us, RRPFTW. We'll give you a shout-out on the show. Until next time, have fun. We're going to have all the information on Troy and his upcoming tournament down in the doodly-doo post-show, so be sure to check it out. And if you do find your way to that tournament, let them know that, Dash V sent you.
And take some pictures and tweet us.
Take care until next week, guys. Thanks again, Troy.
Thank you.